What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we have a 2008 Toyota Sienna. We're going to put a right front CV axle into it. So to start off here, I'm on a different rack because that one's occupied. But we're going to go ahead and jack it up here, get the wheel off, and then we'll take those three bolts out down there, undo the tie rod, the brake caliper so we don't stretch out the hose and all that. May not even have to take it off. We'll see in a minute though. And then we'll undo that retainer ring right there, and the whole thing should slide right out. Let's get it jacked up. Alrighty, so wheel off. We're going to start by using this 30mm 12-point triple square. Looks like. Anyway, that's going to take that Toyota CV axle nut off of there. And we'll take the cotter pin out of the tie rod here. Undo that there, and the three bolts we talked about down here are 17mm. We'll pop those out. And there's also a 17 for the nut for the tie rod. We'll get that in a second. So now we actually got turned toward me a little this way. We're going to take, I always put the nut back on here so you don't hit the threads. We're going to take a hammer, hit that so we can break the taper loose in there. Just like so. Now we can take that nut off. Pop the tie rod out of the way. And then you can just take the control arm, pull it down, it'll separate the ball joint there. And then you can pull the CV axle right out. As you can see, we got kind of push over the side here. You don't want to pull and bend this too much because you don't want to bend that strut tower, obviously, but you can kind of push it off to the side there, and then you got plenty of room to pull that CV axle right out of there. So let's get that retainer ring off. And here we are back underneath here. Grab some channel locks here. And there, just squeeze and get him out of that groove up there. There we go. And be careful, of course, because when this thing comes out, normally you have a little bit of transmission fluid will come out of there. Doesn't look like much. So, but yeah, that's it. You take that off of there, and this thing just slides right up. Little disclaimer though, I have had them to where they're actually seized up in here, and you got to get behind here with a punch or something and persuade it a little bit to come out of there. So. Truthfully, this is the easiest one I've ever had come out, thankfully. But yeah, and then back up here. It's caught back there. She just slides right up. And of course, we got our new one here to compare, nice and shiny. Everything matches up. New one does come with its new nut here, so we'll use that instead of using that old one. Make sure it goes in there good. It's much easier to do with two hands. And then we'll come under here and make sure that it's going into the transmission correctly. Seated good. Put that retainer ring back in there, and then we'll get that out there, put back together. But make sure you don't be like me. Don't forget the retainer ring on the old CV axle. Normally I've had luck though. Just press them right like that, and then we'll get it worked into place. Get it squeezed, and it just goes. Make sure it sits flush into those grooves there. Of course, you want to make sure the axle is all the way in so that we'll lock it in place, and that's where it sits, just like so. Like I said earlier, you don't want to bend the strut tower over too much, but you can pull it out just a little bit and help work that axle into the hole there, just like so. So he'll go in there, the strut tower will push back, and then we'll work this ball joint back into the holes here. Alright, and we got him back in there, so we'll just get the bolt back up in there, get the two nuts on there, get the axle nut on there, tighten them down. So we got them tightened down, and now we're going to be looking at 94 foot-pounds on these and 217 on here. So make sure you get that caliper pressed good and tight down to hold that in place when you torque it. And then the new nut here is a different design, so it's just a 30, where'd my socket go? 32 millimeter. Wooden tight. Let's make sure we get our tie rod back in place. If I can even do this with one hand. I don't think I can. Bam. There we go. Get our nut on there. And he don't have to be too tight. Make sure it is ran all the way down. You don't want to get it just to where the cotter pinhole is showing, but you want to make sure it is actually snug and the taper is locked in there. So that should be good. And then coming up to here, we want to take a dull chisel and a hammer and punch that into place, and that'll lock that nut in place. So that's punched down, locked into place. Don't forget your cotter pin for your tie rod. Get your wheel on there, torque it to about, I believe these call for 80 to 90 foot-pounds. You're not going to hurt it if you want to do the full 100. Don't go any higher than that there. But, there you go. On a 2008 Toyota Sienna, we got that right front CV axle in there. Like and follow for more, and we all have a good day.